Tonight, Rinpoche gave an excellent overview of the teachings for beings of three capacities. So if everybody wants to turn, Rinpoche today again is teaching the source of all my good. So it's on page 39 in your books. You'll see it in the Tibetan and in the English. So that's where we're going to begin. And Rinpoche said we're going to go through it real quickly. Just go through it. Okay. So the text that we call the source of all my good is very short, but the contents of it are the same as Atisha's lamp for the path to enlightenment, as well as Lama Tsongkhapa's larger Lamrim, such as the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, and other texts such as the medium stages of the path to enlightenment. Okay, so when we at the beginning of this text, the source of all my good, we find the reference to the teacher. If we wish to learn any subject, it's necessary to have a teacher. If one wants to learn English, it's necessary to have a teacher to teach you the English language, and then you'll understand it. Likewise, if one wants to learn how to drive a car, it's necessary to have someone teach you how to drive a car in order to know how to do it. So in order to learn how to practice the teachings for beings of small, medium, and great capacity, it's necessary to be taught those stages by a teacher. So that's why we begin in the beginning with the reference to the teacher, because one must first have a teacher to learn any of this information that's contained within this text. So we begin with this stanza. The source of all my good is my kind Lama, my Lord. Bless me first to see that taking myself to him or her, it's not gender specific, him or her in the proper way is the very root of the path, and grant me then to serve and follow him or her with all my strength and reverence. So the next stanza deals with the human basis that we have, and the human basis specifically that has the 8 leisures, is free of the 8 leisureless states, and has the 10 freedoms. So here we're finding a reference made to a basis that we've achieved of that type. So then, bless me first to realize that the excellent life of leisure I found just this once is ever so hard to find and ever so valuable. Grant me then to wish and never stop to wish that I could take its essence night and day. So then, in the next stanza, we begin to get into the teachings, which are pathways for beings of small capacity. And then we find the practices such as going for refuge to the three jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, engaging in ethics which abandons the 10 non-virtuous activities, and acknowledging one's downfalls if one wavers as far as one's ethics.
So
Christian religious tradition, as well as other religious traditions, have this have very similar traditions of going for refuge, for instance, to Jesus or God, and then engaging in ethical behavior, which abandons the 10 non-virtuous activities. So we find this similarity in other religious traditions as well.
What did that the name was Lusu Chu to Jibi Chawa Jambatan, Chawmataba. She just looked at machine. Kana led the session down la, about never near touching Tawana Jambatan, Getu Tada Dubashevala, Tadu Pata de Bashilos, what the Jibi Chungulan was.
So it says, my body and the life in it are fleeting as the bubbles in the sea froth of a wave. Bless me first thus to recall the death that will destroy me soon. So here we find the topic of death and impermanence. And help me find sure knowledge that after I've died, the things I've done, the white or black, and what those deeds will bring to me, follow always close behind, as certain as my shadow. Grant me then ever to be careful to stop the slightest wrongs of the many wrongs we do, and try to carry out instead each and every good of the many that we made. So this stanza is referring to the stage of the past for beings of small capacity.
So if
one wishes to be born as a human or wishes to be born as a god, then one engages in these practices which are called pathways to the higher realms. Nika. Nika. Shiloka ni.
Shiloka ni ba.
Ye sampa.
Nada samba ti jamba yin tanda shi ba ye shi ba yin bi so susu tabala duba ne ba shi wa shi ji los. Wa de ni de ge wa de jebu ndi da tumu la. Ana nga su ko lu ku de ge judo wa de de mari ba ta. Ana tala de na wa de chi dunga gai dunga nai dunga chi dunga la su bata su la san ta ne ana nga yug samba shangha tin sare
Lessa
nga yug samba ta ana lhaba su nya la che tin samar ba
Lessa. So the next two stanzas deal with the teachings, the training the mind and the stage of the path shared in common with beings of medium capacity. So it says, bless me to perceive all that's wrong with the seemingly good things of this life. I can never get enough of them. They cannot be trusted. They are the door to every pain I have. Grant me then to strive instead for the happiness of freedom. Grant that these pure thoughts may lead me to be watchful to recall what I should be doing. Grant me to give the greatest care to make the vows of morality the essence of my practice. They are the root of Buddha's teaching. Here we have in the teachings or the stage of the path for beings of medium capacity, we find a reference to this understanding of the various types of suffering, the suffering of birth, the suffering of aging, the suffering of sickness, the suffering of death. And by understanding this, one generates a desire to definitely emerge from it, from suffering, to definitely emerge from cyclic existence. So one generates what is called renunciation. Here we find what the causes of cyclic existence are, and when we find look to what causes cyclic existence, we find that it's the ignorance that grasps at true establishment. So that ignorance is what causes cyclic existence. So in this specific capacity, one wishes to be free from cyclic existence altogether. So by recognizing the various types of suffering and their downfalls, one generates renunciation and engages in the practice of the three highest higher trainings, the highest higher training in ethics, concentration, and wisdom. Diksong Rinpoche. And so now we get into the stages of the path for beings of great capacity. These are pathways which lead to complete Buddhahood. And it says, I have slipped and fallen into the sea of this suffering life. Bless me to see that every living being, every one my own mother, has fallen into. Grant me then to practice the wish for enlightenment, to take on myself the task of freeing them all. So this here is referring to the stages of the path for beings of great capacity. So in the great vehicle, this is a great vehicle pathway. And the great vehicle pathways are for the purpose of becoming a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, to be able to fulfill the purpose, fulfill the needs of all sentient beings. So here, these pathways are for the purpose of becoming a Buddha for that reason. So one has the realization of Mahayana mind generation in order to do that. Dixon. So in the prayer book we have the prayer that says, I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Here that's referring to going for refuge. And then it says, through the merit I create by practicing giving in the other perfections, may I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. That part, may I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, is referring to the mind that aspires to enlightenment, bodhicitta.
The language in a conscious doing a Guyada Tibetan Chuinos, Chibuchungo, Jin Chenmo, Sunan Bungu del Chu said to Yorua, what the Chibuchimidan woman. Chungun did the Chuji, Chibusun Shibaja, and the Kaza. Chibusun Shibaja.
Jibushun Shibasha. Ganshi Ta. Tani Gandagi, Korwe de Dala.
Rani to the Nishaba, Chibutan Tamashi, Chibuchungo, and then Sibi Della Joshi, Dubi Lilla to that, Kajiran, Chibutan Dish.
Less so.
Raju to be the Naji, Kashi Dunga, and that's about Queen the Chibuchuro.
Less so.
Or Saji was there.
Less so. So when we look at Atisha's lamp for the path to enlightenment, we find the presentation of these three capacities. First we find a summary of them, and then the individual description of each of them, stanza by stanza. It says, understand there are three kinds of persons. Because of their small, middling, and supreme capacities, I shall write clearly distinguishing their individual characteristics. And then we have a stanza that reads about the stages of the path shared in common with beings of small capacity. Know that those who, by whatever means, seek for themselves no more than the pleasures of cyclic existence are persons of least capacity. Then we get into the teachings for beings of medium capacity. Those who seek shared in common, those teachings for shared in common with beings of medium capacity. Those who seek peace for themselves alone turning away from worldly pleasures and avoiding destructive actions are said to be of middling capacity. And then the next stanza reads, for beings of great capacity. Those who, through their personal suffering, truly want to end completely all the suffering of others are persons of supreme capacity. So here we find the description of those three capacities in the lamp for the path to enlightenment.
Sentient tantric Sanji Kumu Tuba Shawo Nyabe Sente Teba Chimbe Lan Jogu Res Teba Chimbe Lan Jogu Maso Kama Ne Sona God Nalu Josona Kama Nalu Lenogrova Teba Chimbe Gunda Matote Sentient tantric Dubu Sanji Kumu Tuba Shawo Nyabe Sente Res Jogu Sente Juli Josona and Kaza Teba Chimbe Chanagre Shanju Samba Chanagres.
So this idea, may I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, is what bodhicitta is. So when we look at the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, Lama Tsongkhapa expands the explanation of the mind that aspires to enlightenment. So when we look at the section on training the mind in the stage of the path for beings of great capacity, Lama Tsongkhapa has three categories. First, showing that developing the spirit of enlightenment, or bodhicitta, is the only entrance into the Mahayana. Second category is how to develop the spirit of enlightenment, or how to develop bodhicitta. And then the third category is how to learn the bodhisattva deeds after developing the spirit of enlightenment, or after developing bodhicitta. So there are three categories in this presentation. And the first category is showing that the developing bodhicitta, or the spirit of enlightenment, is the only entrance into the Mahayana. So like a door is an entrance into a house. In order to get into the house, you have to go through the door. Likewise, in order to become a Mahayanist, it's necessary to generate the mind that aspires to enlightenment, generate bodhicitta. Because once you generate bodhicitta, which is this spirit of enlightenment, or mind that aspires to enlightenment, which is wishing to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, then you become a Mahayanist, then you become a bodhisattva. So this is why it's the entrance into the Mahayana. It's because you become a Mahayanist once you generate it. You become a bodhisattva. Digsum Rinpoche. So in the perfection teachings, we find the causal perfection vehicle, and then we find the resultant perfection vehicle. So there are these two different perfection vehicles, causal and resultant.
So
the two Mahayana vehicles within the Mahayana, which are the causal and perfection vehicles, are entered by the mind that aspires to enlightenment. So they are the entrance is bodhicitta. So many say, though, that the entrance into the Tantra is an initiation. So we can say, yes, that an initiation is the entrance into Tantra, but the bodhicitta is the entrance into the tantric vehicle, into Tantrayana.
다전야바지고는 sensitive choose 니래도 말봐.
That's so.
Yeah.
So when we look at how one develops the mind that aspires to enlightenment, or how one develops bodhicitta, there's a large amount of information there. But when we look at what the two causal practices for developing the mind that aspires to enlightenment are, we'll find that they are first the practices that were passed down from Lord Atisha, which are called the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment. And then we have the practices that were passed down by Master Shantideva, which are called the equalizing and exchanging self with others practices. So these are causes for the mind that aspires to enlightenment, or yeah, that's it. Diksun.
다준에 망아디고는 센치바들라 지르미치와데 리젠랑 아바치바다 리젠도 좀 홍고이니스 리젠랑 아바치바 성원둘레 힌지 쳔부터 티바 쳔부 라지 사와리스 마시 텐텐테도 용을 샴바 리제테 힌지 주레스 라상던 센지니데 힌지 드레브레스 말베
So we find a large amount of information about the stages of developing this mind that aspires to enlightenment, and it's showing how the root of the Mahayana path is compassion. So we find this point being made, that when we look at these two different types of instructions, we find the 7-point cause and effect instruction and so forth. We find the certainty about the order of the stages related to the 7-point cause and effect. And then we see that the root of the Mahayana is compassion. And when we look at the 7-point cause and effect, they are either causes for compassion or results of compassion, or those stages or steps. So when we look at the first four, recognizing all sentient beings are our mother, remembering their kindness, wishing to repay their kindness and love through the force of attraction. Those four are causes for compassion, or causes for great compassion. The steps after great compassion, which are the extraordinary attitude, and then bodhicitta, or the mind that aspires to enlightenment, are results of great compassion. So we see that in the 7-point cause and effect, all of those steps are either causes for or effects of great compassion, and it shows in the great treatise in a large way how compassion is the root of the Mahayana. Diksun.
다 넘버 시제타지라고 많이 버산던 것을 말이야. 시제타지라고 많이 봐. 아니 시제타지라고 마칸데스레스. 어두산당 그 주세 몸사도 마다나 시제타지라고 많이 물을 차고 말이스. 시제타지라고 많이 물을 차발라. 안에 나 수수 있지와 도마매 버시고 그랬어. 수수 있지와데 안에 다른 가서 천대로 와. 천대도 가네 용버렸으나 네, 천디 왕부당 되네 셰바당 안에 온종어 어디서 가네 용버렸으나 안에 바두기 와데 온종어는 용버렸어. 대저왕 하마를 용버려. 저 대저왕 하마 투마매 버렸어. 말이야.
So we've arrived at the first step in the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment, passed down by Lord Atisha. The first step is recognizing that all sentient beings are our mothers. Now, in order to realize this, we have to do a large amount of analysis. Without doing so, we really won't be able to arrive at this certainty about all sentient beings being our mother. We have to first establish that our own rebirths have had no beginning. So we have to look at our current consciousness and then try to find where that came from, and we see it came from a previous consciousness that came from a previous moment's consciousness. And then when we say where did the birth consciousness come from, we say that it came from the intermediate state consciousness, and that consciousness came from that previous life's consciousness. So we begin to trace consciousness, and it's not possible to logically posit a beginning. So we then establish establish this beginningless consciousness. Then we look at the breathing in and out that we're doing, and when we establish where it came from, we come up with that it came from a previous moment's breathing in and out. So when we look at the breathing in and out and trace it, we find beginningless breathing in and out. When we look at our sense powers themselves that are currently allowing us to apprehend things, we find that there's no beginning to those when we look at them. So then by finding no beginning to our consciousness and to our breathing, to our sense powers, it allows us to establish beginningless rebirths over and over again, which then allows us to establish that all sentient beings have been our mother, therefore all sentient beings are our mother. But without this analysis, it'd be very difficult for this realization to occur. It has to be caused by something, and it's caused by thinking about these points, about the breadth of sense powers and consciousness and where they came from. Diksang Rinpoche.
What the sentient tantric joal toma me ba yimba de pe chu ta be nan den ko du bares. No be lotana rang de la tumejens. Jongus onyo marba. On bus on broa.
Lessa.
On jongo onyo da. What the son la tene sentient so joal toma me ba. Toma me bares. Toma me ba yin na so sentient so ji ma nyo ji yo khaji joal nga me amare khaji tsendi amare. Tin so sa sentient tantric rang ma onyo be. What the gongo bares ma.
So this idea that all sentient beings have beginningless rebirth is posited by Dharmakirti in the Pramanavartika Karika, where it says where did the consciousness, sense powers, and breathing arrive from? They didn't arrive from something unlike themselves or of a different type. Therefore, all sentient beings have beginningless rebirth. So, Dharmakirti uses this sense powers, the breathing, and the consciousness, and that they come from that which is of the same type, meaning consciousness comes from consciousness as a note of the same type. So because of that, Dharmakirti posits this beginningless rebirth for all sentient beings and shows how in this life we have a certain mother, and in previous lives we had other mothers, and therefore all sentient beings have been our mother. Therefore, because there's this beginningless consciousness, we can posit that all sentient beings are our mother.
So
by thinking in this way, we will be able to arrive at this idea that, oh yes, all sentient beings are my mother. But this is how we arrive at that notion. So then, from that, you slowly have this idea of remembering their kindness, then wishing to repay their kindness, and then from this comes this love through the force of attraction. Dixon.
And the Tananga Nebayo, never Sanji Liore, Singing Taji, Sanji Tuba Shawonabe, Sanji Lemumbre.
So then, may all sentient beings be free from suffering. This idea is great compassion. So from this love through the force of attraction, we arrive at may all sentient beings be free from suffering, and that's great compassion. And then, I will free them from their suffering is the extraordinary attitude which comes from great compassion. And then one realizes that one doesn't have the means to be able to free all sentient beings from their suffering. We're inhibited, we're unable to do so. Then we look at who is able to free sentient beings from their suffering, and we realize it's Buddha. And then at that point, we wish to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. So that's how we arrive at that idea of a wish to become a Buddha. It's through this series of analyses that bring us to that point.
다시 단지던 선주고 투바 샤오냐베 센트 여바 장제 선제도 말레스 안에 라주 메지 바신 조다 제지 메지 두용업을 하고 그래서 말이야.
So just having this wish to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings isn't enough. It won't allow us just to become a Buddha. We have to engage in the Parshin Drutan, the six perfections, and Parshin Drutan.
두용업을 짐바 해봐마. 돈티버 돈쇼버지도 말이야. 두용업을 안에 짐바탄 무슨 가비지로다.
Lesson.
해봐마 그저 해보시는 가비지로. 해봐마. 돈쇼버 돈티바. 안 말레시아도 수수ኛ래 제바이나 돈쇼버 돈티 제도 말이야. 두용업을
just wishing to become a Buddha is not enough. We have to engage in the practice of the six perfections, and we have to engage in the four practices of the teacher. I forget what they're called. The four practices of the teacher, or four personal instructions.
공부하면 자주 문도바 레바톤의 제세 동발라 좀 잡을로 버신지로 되게 쉐발로 수템도 쉐발로 주 senza 제주 수진 나송라 공부하면 자주 문도바 레바톤의 제세 동발라 좀 잡을로 버신지로 쉐발로 수템고 아레스
There's 39. So now we've arrived at the next. Bless me first to see clearly that the wish itself is not enough. For if I am not well trained in the three moralities, I cannot become a Buddha. Grant me then a fierce resolve to master the Bodhisattva vows. So here, as we were saying, just that wishing itself is not enough. One has to engage in these practices.
Shubashil Labata Jimba Chujin Zoba Jundu Santen Shiro Water Tulha Remede.
So here, the Yandrasurla?
Jimba Chujin Zoba Jundu Lama Chuban Tadro, Lama Chuba, Matu Santele, Luton Lonsu to Songusuje, Sija around the Bunga Jude, Chaman Donsan Pima, Jimba Ode, two, no, two. Lama Chuban Yorote.
The four methods for gathering disciples. That's the four instructions. That's what it's called. Longshu.
Le dans l'enjeu de son couteau, c'est un rendez-vous de Chaman tout ça bien, j'ai vu pas chez toi, j'ai pas les doigts.
So when we look at the various perfections, we have the perfection of generosity, the perfection of ethics, the perfection of patience, the perfection of hold on one second, let me just find something. So in the silk offering we find, Rinpoche is just quoting a part of that silk, so lo dan lo shu. So it's my body and enjoyments, you just find it. Lo should do go pelden.
Ta jimba so what mara jimba kaso gorda. Ton sembata, le jimba ta, le temps, longe jimba ta sa ta kambala su jimba ta, le temps longe. Ne tu son goso jes debi gawa, tata gawa, mabu gawa galo, ne seje su gandeba, sa deba la saya, toya deba la toya, ne kar deba na raran su gandeba na june jimba ta. What does it do?
So in this text, it's speaking of giving our body we seek your blessings to complete the perfection of generosity through the guideline teaching for enhancing the mind that gives without attachment, transforming our body's wealth and collection of virtue over the 3 times into objects desired by each and every living being. So this is the first of the 6 perfections, and we find it referenced here. Rinpoche quoted the Guru Puja. So here it's saying we're making offering of our body, we're making offering of all of our enjoyments, of our wealth, and we're making an offering of all of the virtue we've collected over in the 3 times, past, present, and future, into whatever sentient beings want, whatever fulfills the wishes of sentient beings. So here, this is the perfection of generosity and what it's referring to. And again, previously Rinpoche talked about one has to practice the 6 perfections and the 4 methods for gathering disciples, and that is being generous, speaking well. I'll come back to that. I have to remember the other 2, but I just wanted to get it in there before I forgot. So that's stanza number 101, if anybody's looking at the Guru Puja.
다 예수 바신 중 아주 르된들 예수 바신 중 두간데 쉐버스나 내가 추진 손나는 말전도 추진 조시근도 되는 아주 말 지사다 감바다 longe 몸도 못하다 longe 투수근가로 주가르스나 짐바스 말베 짐비 응고물로도 짐비 longe 짐바다 말는 longe 용그레스 Jimbe Longje, and then also Melissa, Tomata, Kambata, Monta, Longje Momero, the Jimbaris, Jimbe Longjes, Trinity de, Children's wallet and Dental Chevaris, Jimbe Longje, Trinity de, Zobin Dandes, Zoba Gombalat and Zon Zebu Yungres, Zon Zeba, the Zobin Depures, Zobin Danden, Zombe Jis. mal ziji chambero ziji to what the tunju ndebres
lasa
chombe je
lasa
sanden jesus and also me the senju sheshin to wa joro what
lasa
da sanden ngone da yunanda menanda sanden da buyoro da sheshin to what the sanden ngone gombe ndebres
lasa
sanden jeje luju and nyumo ba the shiji jebal truwa 네 돈이도 싫어근데 그래서 루이죠 돈이도 싫어 공부할 때네 몇번 받던 가서 돈을 주고 그래서 선대지 루이죠 말면 공부를 주고 말면 재미로서 티지데 저변나데 준비지 선대지 루이죠
Lui Drew, you understand?
루이죠 돈이도 로라 되네 나서 돈을 주는 거래 그 돈을 주는 거래 시리그 돈을 주는 말이야 루이트에서 어때로
goes drew okay go okay so the what comes from the 6 perfections, how does one get what does one get from the 6 perfections, and how does a human basis get formed? In order for there to be a human basis formed, there have to be various causes. So first there have to be ethical behavior. Next, one has to have flawless or stainless aspirations. And then third, one has to engage in the practice of the 6 perfections. So how do the 6 perfections fit into this, and what do they cause? So Master Nagarjuna has a statement that he's made about each of the 6 perfections, the Rinchen Chenmo, the Sheiqing Gare. So in the so in the Precious Garland, we find a quote by Nagarjuna that explains what these all cause. So he first says, from generosity comes the enjoyments, or comes the things we have. Here it's translated as our wealth, but mostly it's translated as enjoyments. So from generosity comes wealth or enjoyments. From ethics comes happiness. And here happiness is referring to a human body, the human basis, the higher realm rebirth. So from ethics comes happiness. And then it says from patience comes beauty, a good color or beauty. And then it says from effort comes charisma. Then it says from concentration, peace of mind. Now, when we speak of real concentration or real calm abiding or concentration levels, we're speaking of like a mental peace, that appliancy that actually occurs. But we need to first generate something similar to that kind of quietude, that calm abiding, so that we can eventually have that real concentration level. And when we're speaking of the perfection of it, we're speaking of that real concentration, which is calm abiding. And then lastly is the wisdom. From wisdom, it comes the realization to go. And what that means is the wisdom realizing emptiness allows one to go free from the lower realms, one abandon, be free from the afflictions and so forth. So that's it. Dixon. Okay.
Jimban du rugun yin noro. Sinin duba jubi chanja chu. Majun hedu jibi jesi chu. Hebi daba shuju jubi je. Tada shena le dans l'onshe ge. Tada shena le dans l'onshe ge. Lonzu tonyu lanzang kebi den. Jujan lame yana da tando da chade jin changse los. Wad lari du den de do lan du den.
Kermason.
De ya. Jimban du rugun bei tan la shunji. Jimban du rugun ni tar do. Jimban du rugun yin. Jimba do de jimba tang yin na ma so ga ba chiro ta. Ne jimba tang yin ma so ga ba chires. Ne jimba do du ro kon yu yin no ba ba res. Yin no bo. Jimban du rugun yin no yin no bo.
That's good. So in the Lamrim Duden, we find reference to the generosity being, so Rinpoche is going to go through it. I don't have the text I usually have, my Lama Tsongkhapa text that has this abbreviated stages of the path in it, but it expresses the excellence of generosity, and it says generosity is more higher or greater than a wish-granting gem. It fulfills the... Then
Senin deba ju jimba ta ka de sana mare be sana deba tia chunja o me de so.
It frees us from the weapon of miserliness. Then
majun hedu je be jesi chus. Shomba me be hedu je be ne shaju se be shoba res jesi chu. Hebi da ba shu jimba ta ke de o de kida chu yong res. Hebi da ba shu ju ju bi ma de ya ba da res. Ne shujula wo de heda ge chagres hembi da ba shuju ju bijes keda yo de ba ina jimba tango ma ta jimba tang ba ina shujula heda ge chodu yo ta
Geshe, it is the conqueror's Shinninto. It is the core of the conqueror's children's practice. So it gets rid of miserliness, and it is the core of the practice, Ninto, the core practice of the conqueror's children. Then
Hembi Taba Shuji Jubi Tada Shene Lu Dong Long Shoke, Te Taba Shene, and Lu Jimba Tanya, Long Shu Jimba Tanya, Gawa Jimba Tanya, what the Jegores.
So something that all of the enjoyments are received or achieved through generosity. Nene?
Tatano Shul Tsuti Marbe, Tsuti Nisha Tomatrivicho, Nemo Sadon Se in the U, Jigu and Habatabaji, Tuji Debama Dragundu, Tadashan and Dalam Pitin, Tamana Major Somanze, Zolamin and Tadadati, Tsuti Rendo, Tsuti Nisha Tomatrivicho, and Tsuti Sombaina, Magijumo Sombaina, and Magiju to what the Chu Tribana Tano Road, Marbe. Tsuji Dramatrivichus, Magijumo Tsuzumayina, and the Magijo to what the dramatic Caligal Dana Marva. Tsuji Dramatrivichus.
So ethics is the stainless Trima the Tsuchim.
Tsuji Dramatrivicho. Nyamu Sadun say in the US, and then Yamu Sadun to see in the US in the Buddhist. Dawa de what the Mont Shayon doing the Toy now the Caesars on Yumaba. Yumo was Hadun de Sudin de Senators. Yumobi.
So it's the ethics are like the moon that scorches away the negativities. So it's saying get negativities, meaning that ethics get rid of one's afflictions. Ethics get rid of all the negativities that we have.
Chiguin and Habatabages. Chutin Abasun de Gato, the Mamuchil, what the Rage of Rona, what the Torium Reseta, Chiguin and Habatabages, Chu Mamuganane, Rage of Rona, Gigi Chibun, what is the
it's like it's Gigi Chempo.
Chiguin and Habatabages on Zigi Marbete.
CG. Charisma,
powerful.
It's the ethics that make you more famous or more powerful and famous than the king of the mountains. So it's saying then Mount Meru, through ethics you become more famous or more renowned than the Mount Meru, the great Mount Meru. Nene?
Tuji deba mebandrugundus, and the Maganga Sendugo and a Martin, what then again, the Google Marista. Tuji deba mebandrugalo, Sudi Abusun to do it. Taliam exam, Talamata, Jan
it is the behavior that attracts all others to you. So we see the example of the Dalai Lama, for instance, who's very... Rinpoche is just giving a synopsis of the meaning of this quote. We see the example of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, for instance, who has this great presence in that everyone wants to come see him. It's because of this ethics that he possesses. I have a copy of this.
Zoba Dune Nala Jenjus. Zoba Dune Nala Jenju and Karsa. Zoba Dune Nala Jenju. Yamudu Katu Kunjubi. Shedan La Dala Nakadin. Chizu Sola Sai Kujayin. Tadreshen Zochu Kujala. Nabana to combat the Jizona Mena Tanu Dajin Chancellor.
Do we have a copy of Life Teachings of Tsongkhapa here by Robert Thurman? We don't have a Lamrim Duden here? Yeah, it's in English, the abbreviated state. I'd have to literally translate this whole text right now, live. I can. What? Yeah. So then we get into patience. So patience is the ornament. It is the most, the highest ornament. So, so patience is the highest ornament, the highest ornament. Then
Zoba do den la jenji chus. Ne zoba de tu do de bishan chu sembo la soba tu zuki jengi chu tu juba jenya ju de res.
So if we look at adornments or we look at ornaments, yeah, you can probably get it right there offline. Abbreviated stages of the path is the bodhisattvas wear this patience, and it is this patience that they carry with them is the most beautiful ornament that one can have. It says.
Zoba do den la jenji nyemo do ka tu kun ju pi ka tu kun nyemo do yu ka tu kun ju pi nyemo be ka de ni ya ju de res marbe nyemo do ka tu kun ju pi special de.
So it is the most the biggest enemy against the affliction. So it's the biggest enemy, or the biggest enemy that against the afflictions.
Nyamudu katu kunjipi.
Nyamudu.
Shedan la de dala nakadins. Shedan la de shedan de konju do de to do na marbe example. Shedan la de dala nakadins. What the
Thank you.
Shedan la de dala nakadins. What the to do ginyaba de what the kadim marbe kadim. Ego sugro. Ego to what the senek nyaba marbe. What the ne konju de Senek Nabores, Conjugate Senek, the Guinea, the water, Kasar Zoba the Readers.
You're right. Okay, so let's just, I'm going to go through it. Being generous is the wish-granting gem. Is the wish-granting gem for fulfilling the hopes of wandering beings. It is the best weapon to sever miserliness. It is the bodhisattva's It's the bodhisattva behavior that enhances not feeling inadequate, but feeling courageous or having courage. It's the basis for your fame of renown to be proclaimed in the 10 directions. Realizing this, the wise devote themselves to the excellent path of fully giving away their bodies, possessions, and positive force. So that's generosity. Ethical discipline is the water to wash away the stains of misdeeds. It's the ray of moonlight to cool the scorching heat of disturbing emotions. You shine out amidst the 9 kinds of beings. You outshine amidst all beings like a Mount Meru. By its power, you bend all beings to your positive influence without need for mesmerizing snares. Realizing this, the hallowed beings safeguard as they would their eyes the vowed discipline that they take on purely. The ennobling, impeccable Lama has practiced like this. Let me too, who strive for liberation, cultivate myself in the same way. Patience is the best adornment for those with strong force, or the best ornament for those with strong force, and the foremost of all aesthetic practices for those tormented by disturbing emotions. It's the high-soaring Garuda as the enemy of the slithering snake of anger, and the thickest armor against the sharp weapons of abusive words. Realizing this, the wise accustom themselves in various ways and forms to wearing the padding of supreme patience. The ennobling, impeccable Lama has practiced like that. Let me too, who strives for liberation, cultivate myself in the same way. So here, here where the snake is representing anger, and anger is combated by patience. And we find when we look in the center of the wheel of life and the poisons, one of them being anger, and is symbolized by a snake in this. Nene, the zupa.
Chizu chun la sayu kuchay tada jine, chizu chun la sayu kuchay tada shene, leju kuchay la, naba nazu kuchay to, ta peyi nga le ya tishu, tada yin shen tu na. Peyi ma tu yin cha hu ma re. Ya tishu nga di ku tada shire ma re.
8, 9, 10, 6, 7. I think we need sample.
Oh yeah. 대신에 저바 차송 다 저바 말배
Vasa.
진바 추진 저바 다 존재 말배 존재로 존재 가도도 모두 대비 존재 고고나 농도 연대 양은 다진피 현로 다시 도다 대바죠 가장 레지타나 인로 지존라면을 되던 탄도 다시 되지 장세로스
Vasa.
모두 대비 존재 고고나 존재 대아버지바이나 농기 연대다 두비 연대도 속가로 다와 제바 지내 중요바도야 펜더 나진 농기 연대다 두비 연대가 제무레스 근데 인치 장근에 존재 치부여 놓고 인치다 힌디다 가리는 건가야 연대 제무로
Vasa.
what to say 말배
Vasa. So now we get into the joyous perseverance. It says, once you suit up with the armor of unswayable, resolute, joyful perseverance, your proficiency in the scriptures and in their realizations grow full like the waxing moon. All your pathways of behavior take on a meaningful purpose, and you bring whatever you start to their task's end, just as you've wished. Realizing this, the triumphant one's offspring set in motion great waves of joyful perseverance, washing away all laziness. So here it says your proficiency in scriptures and their realizations grow full like the waxing moon. So here this means that your script, when we look at excellent qualities, we have excellent qualities of scripture and excellent qualities of realization. So we have realizations, we have scriptural realizations, and then we have so the excellent qualities of scriptural realizations. So that's it. These realizations will grow when we engage in this joyous perseverance. And going back to patience, Rinpoche just kind of mentioned this patience being like an armor that saves us from abusive words. So when people say bad things to us, if we have this patience, it's like wearing armor that doesn't allow those words to harm us. So I apologize, I forgot to translate that from before. So we have scriptural and realizational doctrines, and those are excellent qualities. So they will grow by having this joyous perseverance. Diksam Rinpoche.
what that 존재 야부여 싫어 야부여 봐지 존재 맨나 어디 연대시라 제도마다 근데 그 어디 싫어 야부여 봐지 존재 야부여나 그 연대 야시부 제모다 말이야 싫어 맨나야 존재 야부여 봐이나 갈래갈래 어디 연대가 제모 그랬어.
So if you have a large amount of wisdom, but you don't put any effort in, then your excellent qualities won't increase. But if you have a lot of wisdom and you put a lot of effort in, then your excellent qualities will increase. But if you don't have a lot of wisdom, but you put a lot of effort in, your excellent qualities will still increase. So we see that no matter what, putting in effort, or a lot of, here we translate it as joyful perseverance, allows our excellent qualities to grow. So here it speaks of your proficiency in the scriptures and their realizations grow full like the waxing moon.
santen sen lang ju jabute santen sen lang ju jabute jana humain ri on peut tana ki me ba kun la ju le sen les autres de chen de de chen ne ju on peut na yi dan ju de ju de je suis la men la de ta de da de gens se los santen sen lang ju jabute我的定个这种我呢托吧，因那我的sen lang ju ke jabun da mu es ma ba ta toni la me现在当네 돈이라 매 비시네다 살라 매 비시네다 시네 토요바 이나 what 시네 되게 생로 온주도 그러 다른 가서 what 생들 녀모 온주도 그러 산데 살라 온주 잡은다 그래서 산데 살라 온주 잡으되 샤는 유메리 온버지 되는 토사수나 Kutinyaba Sha to Rion Benaji Temperature Juda. Jana Ume Rion Obajin. Tana Game of Kulanjus. Tambaina, Game of Karin Jisan Tambaina, Tamale, Jotugres, Shetugres, Tana Game of Kulanju. Le Saint Lesono, descendants, Le Saint Lesono, Tingas the Ton de Le Chijan dans Saint Chijans. Le Jibun Wayoro, Le Jibo, Saint Jibun Wayoro, what the Le Saint Lesono, descendants, what the swing is a marva?
Okay. So now we get to concentration. Here it's translated as mental stability. I've not seen that before, but I'm just going to use the word concentration. Concentration is the king wielding power over the mind. Fix it, and it remains immovable, like the powerful lord of the mountains. Project it, and it engages in all constructive aims. It induces an exhilarating sense of feeling physically and mentally fit. Realizing this, the yogis with powerful command continuously devote themselves to absorbed concentration, overcoming the enemy, mental distraction. The ennobling, impeccable Lama has practiced like that. Let me too, who strive for liberation, cultivate myself in the same way. So here, it's saying that concentration is like the king that has the power over the mind. It can control, just like the king controls things. The concentration can control our mind and can allow it to stay fixed on whatever object we want it to. So once we have real single-pointed concentration, once we have real mental stability, we could compare it to its stability to it says the powerful lord of the mountains is so a mountain is immovable, it's very stable, and once we really have this single-pointed concentration, it's very stable, and we can utilize it to concentrate and understand emptiness. So we can have emptiness as the object of observation of our single-pointed concentration. We can have a deity as the object of observation of our single-pointed concentration. And once we develop single-pointed concentration, we're able to engage very readily and easily in any type of virtuous activity that we wish to. So we're able to just do so without any kind of barriers or any problems. And then it says, it induces an exhilarating sense of feeling physically and mentally fit. Here, once we achieve certain concentration levels and have single-pointed concentration, we get what is called mental and physical pliancy. And it's a state where the body feels very good and feels very peaceful. And so the body and the mind both have this very peaceful sense about them, and it's called mental and physical pliancy, and it's a result of getting single-pointed concentration, and it's kind of a blissfulness of the mind and a blissfulness of the body, kind of coupled with a sense of ease. So that's the best way to translate it, unfortunately, using those kind of two things. So whatever virtue we wish to engage in, we can easily aim the mind at that because of our stability we've created through this single-pointed concentration. Khensur Rinpoche.
Tangaso para sanga Buddhism. Is Solon Marbe.
Lessa.
Is Julan.
Lessa.
Julan Kosulo, Julan Kosu Eji Meji, Tuni Lame Bitingas the Tower, Tingas. Julan Kosu. Tuni Lame Bitingas da Latung Toku, Latung Marbe. Solon Kosu, Tuni Lame Bitingas Yedro. Jana Ume Rio Obajin, Tana Gume Bakulanju, Solon Kosu Jere. Titan was Solon Kosu. Shirubala Europe, the Eji Tang, Tony Lame Tingas down Hatung to Sote, Tolan to Solomatu, Shiruba to Lajiba Tomore. The Tolan goes to Tony Lame Tingas Yudrovata, Tony Lame Jana Umeri Obijin Tingas Yudrova. That Tony Lame Hatung to Gadu Tuzuna, then the Tolan Ajolant Punuris, Tolan Jolant Punuris. Ngate Katil Jurba. What the Gatelia, Tony Lame, Hatung Kadu Tuzuna, Tolan Bay, Tony Lame, Hatung Kadu Tuzuna, Julan.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when we look at this in terms of pathways, the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge has the mantra Teata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasangati Bodhisoha in it. That mantra is referring to the 5 pathways: the path of accumulation, the path of preparation, the path of seeing, the path of meditation, and the path of no more learning. So the first Gate, Teata Om Gate, is referring to the path of accumulation, and at that path of accumulation, one generates this single-pointed concentration, utilizing emptiness as its object of observation. So that's at the path of accumulation, and then when it, then it says it fix it and it remains immovable. So one utilizes as its object of observation emptiness, and it becomes immovable. And then once special insight is generated, which is a union of calm abiding and special insight. So once this is generated, then one moves on to the path of preparation, the second gati, Teata Om Gate Gate. So one has this single-pointed concentration and is utilizing emptiness as one's object, and once special insight is achieved, at that point one moves from accumulation to path of preparation. So that's how this fits into pathways. Rinpoche?
Sibi zawat wane jimbi lang, sunglo kun le ngabi yun ter, tamo masi dram chudu cha, te ter she ne, tando keba yi, lang tu beba tome jeban jesu nami, tando tayo deshi jesu lo, jansi los, shiro sami tenye tayi me song du, tanga su wote, chuk nga lo, temba ma rupa re, marwa, chuk nga lo temba ma rupa re, tende res, nga wo nyabe, nga te, 다시 봄 초동을 뛰네 따버레스 나오냐블이 따버라 뛰네 따버레스 마두버랑 어디요 마레스 정한드마 바시비 띵엔제다 정한드마 바시비 라통 정한드마 바 무슨 통랑 어떻게 칼레지네 와이 말에
Rawan Madrupa
다른 주반지별로도 타바 준지별로 나마르바 타바 준지별로 타바도 주마 임바시별로 되게 타바 준지별로 되는 말이야 나 랑원 마루바시별로 되게 나 랑원 주반지별로 되는 거 이렇게 되고 타바 주마 임바시별로 타바 준지별로 되는 거 그래서
Then Rawan Madrupa Lu, it's the Julan go the guard sombre Solan.
다른 정원 마루바도 어디 랑 마주 공는 과차고 다 라마 쇼네 되네 돈이도 장네 아니 어디 손은 거서 돈이 라미 땡에서 돈을 거죠 되는 조랑 거서 하통도 돈은 거서 돈이 무슨 돈을 거죠 돈은 거서 아니 칼레칼 통보다 고모 칼레 본다지 삼버베.
So then next we arrive at the perfection of wisdom. So here, there it is. It says discriminating awareness, so this is referring to wisdom, is the eye for seeing the profound view of the nature of reality. It's the pathway of the mind for extracting the root of compulsive existence. It's the treasure of good qualities praised in all scriptural pronouncements, and is renowned as the best of lamps for dispelling the darkness of naivety. Realizing this, those who are wise and who wish liberation enhance with all effort that pathway mind. The ennobling, impeccable Lama has practiced like that. Let me too, who strives for liberation, cultivate myself in the same way. So wisdom here, perfection of wisdom, is referring to the understanding that phenomena is not truly established because it dependently originates. It is no more than a collection that comes together and then is nominally designated as this or that. But there is no independent item that exists separately from its collection that serves as its basis of designation. So believing that there is some inherent establishment is like seeing a rope and believing that it is a snake. But the recognition, or the mind that realizes that these things are not all phenomena are not truly established, is a correct understanding which serves as the antidote for the ignorance which grasps at phenomena as being truly established. So it is that ignorance that grasps at phenomena as being truly established, which is the root of cyclic existence. So the way one goes through the various pathways is at the path of accumulation, one has a single pointed concentration which utilizes emptiness as his or her object of observation. So emptiness is the recognition that phenomena is not truly established because it dependently originates. Once there is a special insight realizing this lack of true establishment, at that point one moves on to the path of preparation. And at that point, there's an inferential valid cognition of emptiness. Once one has a direct prime valid cognition of emptiness, then one moves on to the path of seeing, and then there becomes more and more clarity and more objects of negativity abandoned at a more subtle level from the path of meditation to the path of no more learning, where then one is liberated. So the way that it works is one has this single-pointed concentration that utilizes emptiness as its object, then one has single-pointed concentration, then one moved at that point from the path of accumulation to the path of preparation, then there's a direct perception of emptiness, one moves to the path of seeing, which when we look at it in terms of the mantra, Tyatsa Om Gate Gate, that's Paragati, path of meditation is Parasamgati, Bodhisoha is the path of no more learning. So the recognition that things are not truly established, we have a recognition of the lack of true establishment at the path of accumulation, a recognition of the lack of true establishment at the path of preparation, an understanding of the lack of true establishment directly understood at the path of seeing. So this is what wisdom is referring to. It's the wisdom that understands the lack of independence, the lack of inherent existence of phenomena, and because all phenomena independently originates, and there is nothing distinct, separate, or singular that can be posited separate from the collection that's its basis of designation. Diksan Rinpoche. The Tsen, Kon Nilan Dansam. Dream, okay. I remember in Tibet, we were receiving teachings on the Lamrim Duda, and there were 10 or 15 of us, and we would receive it at nighttime when we were done with our chores. And I remember receiving these teachings and then having a dream that I was drinking milk, and it was a purification that took place because of this studying that I was doing of the Lamrim Duda and the abbreviated stages of the path, which is the text that I'm reading out of right now. Thank you so much for getting that, Ted. It's impossible. So then I began to use this in my prayers, the abbreviated stages of the path, and for many, many years I've recited this text, the Lamrim Duda. It's quite a small text, but all of the meaning of the Lamrim Chenmo can be found within it. It's and it's similar to the source of all my good. So when we do prayers like that, or like this, and we read them, then we slowly begin to understand the meaning of them. So I think it's difficult on you all. So I think we should study and practice this slowly. So we'll end here.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll do the concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well, with whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the three times. I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. All-powerful Avalokiteshvara Tenzin Gyatso, may you stay until samsara's end. I pray for the long life of the precious Khensur Wanda, holder of scriptural and realizational doctrines, the spiritual friend who trained extensively in the five great philosophical texts, exceptional wisdom and perseverance. Suji Rinpoche